The wealthy heir tried a plant-based steak in the company cafeteria for the first time. After just one bite, he was completely blown away by a flavor he had never experienced before. Watching him enjoy it so much, his co-workers were surprised. They assumed Edward came from a poor family and had never even eaten steak before. Soon, they became curious how someone like him had gotten into the company. Someone managed to get hold of Edward's employment records, only to find out his file was almost completely blank. One day, Edward walked up to a vending machine to buy a drink, but after opening his wallet, he realized it was filled with nothing but large bills. The machine wouldn't accept them, so he randomly pressed a few buttons to see if anything would work. A coworker secretly watching nearby saw the whole thing and assumed he was too poor to afford a drink. Some even started questioning how he had been raised. Just then, Edward suddenly looked up at the sky.
아버지 어머니, 전 잘 지내고 있습니다. 제 걱정하지 말고 편히 지내십시오.
Hearing that, his co-workers immediately felt guilty. They thought his parents had passed away, but after they left, Edward added one more sentence.
그러니까 감시는 그만두십시오.
As it turned out, his parents were perfectly fine and were secretly watching him through a drone. After work, Edward's assistant came to see him and informed him that, following his mother's instructions, workers had already gone to his new apartment to move in his belongings. Edward handed all the large bills in his wallet to the assistant and asked him to exchange them for smaller bills and coins. The department manager happened to witness this and immediately thought Edward was being extorted. A moment later, the assistant prepared to drive Edward home, but the manager thought they were trying to kidnap him. Without hesitation, he grabbed a handful of dirt and charged forward, throwing sand at everyone, then scooped Edward up and ran, leaving the movers completely confused. The manager brought Edward to a small restaurant, but when the food arrived, Edward just stared at it. The manager curiously asked why he wasn't eating, that he didn't know how to eat it, and that it was his first time trying street food. The manager felt even more sorry for him. He asked whether Edward had a place to stay. Edward replied that he had rented a small apartment near the company. The manager immediately tried to encourage him, telling him not to lose hope because of his living conditions. He even shared his own story, how he started out in a tiny basement apartment, and after 20 years of hard work, finally managed to move into a big house. Later, the manager found out that Edward hadn't even had a housewarming meal. Assuming he was trying to save money, he generously ordered 2 bowls of black bean noodles to celebrate Edward moving into his new home. Before leaving, the manager even gave him a pack of tissues and told him not to be shy. Thinking back on everything he had done that day, the manager felt pretty proud of himself. Meanwhile, Edward was completely confused. After returning to his apartment, Edward snapped his fingers, and all the lights automatically turned on. Then, he noticed a row of suitcases lined up against the wall, so he called Liv over and had her work off the debt she owed him. Liv arrived shortly afterward. After finishing the work, she was about to leave when her stomach suddenly growled. Edward invited her to stay for dinner. Out of habit, he clapped his hands. Liv looked at him with confusion. Only then did Edward realize he no longer had servants around him, so he had no choice but to order takeout. During dinner, the carefree Liv ate enthusiastically and soon had grease all over her face. Edward, who was obsessed with cleanliness, couldn't stand looking at it. He put on a pair of gloves and carefully wiped her face with a napkin. Just then, Edward's mother happened to see the scene, and when she saw how intimate they looked, she was completely shocked.